message. Okay. So please be comfortable. That's the main thing, is to be comfortable, upright, shoulders level, not hunched forwards and not pulled back too far. Arms relaxed by the side of the body, hands in the lap or on the knees, thighs. The head can be tilted slightly forwards, so the back of the neck is slightly stretched, elongated. Make sure that your legs are in good contact with the ground, or your feet with the ground, depending how you're sitting. Make sure your back feels supported sufficiently. And please, let's all bring our attention to where we are right now, and this body sitting where it is, and just gently let go of all of the busyness which may have already accumulated during the day, wherever we are. Just gently bring the awareness to the present moment, the body, the contact with the cushion or chair. Since we're engaged in a process that the Lord Buddha considered of prime importance, therefore it's essential to get the foundations set in a proper way. So the posture is very important, in the beginning at least, for most of us. And the posture is a combination of strength and dignity, the uprightness of the posture, together with the simplicity, if you like, and also the openness of the front of the body. Front of the body is exposed, which suggests that this practice is not only about developing a sense of stability and understanding of ourselves, but it's also directed naturally towards the world, towards others. We're not practicing in order to hide or run away from the world. We are part of the world. There's interdependence between ourselves and others, ourselves and our environment, and we are not denying that. We cannot deny that. There's also the sense that when we begin to slow down and pay attention gently to the breath and allow the mind also to slow down, as it were, and not be so busy with thoughts, memories, and so forth, then there's a natural sense of ease and relaxation can happen, can be there. And that can be naturally radiated outwards. There's a sense that we are sitting in a way where we are sharing that tranquility, clarity, and the kindness which we can uncover when we slow down, are still, and are paying attention. This clarity, this calm, this kindness is one might say, quite difficult to perceive and to actualize when we are so busy rushing around in our daily lives, doing one thing after another, while the mind is furiously thinking, conceptualizing, comparing, and so forth. So here, as we begin to slow down and sit quietly, we can begin to access a somewhat deeper, more tranquil side of ourselves, if you like. Like a pond which may have been stirred up by wind and rain and maybe a storm, and then it's able to, when the wind dies down, when the storm abates, comes back to calm, tranquil, still surface in which there are clear reflections. There is not the distortion that is there when it's all whipped up by the wind and the rain. We can also develop a sense now of gratitude and understanding of how we depend on other people. For example, for this session, we depend on the other people who are participating, quite apart from the Tushita Center, everybody involved. And then if we take it further, then everybody who has had a hand in our being here from the beginning, like our parents, helpers, countless beings involved in producing and delivering what we use every day: food, clothing, shelter, transport, etc. So there's that sense of participation with others, and a gratitude for that. Gratitude also for the fact that something we take for granted is still there, which is our breath, our life. We didn't die yet. I say yet because, as we probably know, it's going to happen one day, and we don't know when. It can come slowly, it can come suddenly, but one day we'll no longer be here. So how wonderful that we still have this opportunity to investigate, to share our life, our insights, our love and compassion with others, humans, animals, and whatever other beings may exist. Make sure the posture is still, calm, relaxed, but also that one is attentive. The head should be tilted slightly downwards. If it's up in the air, it will cause stress in the neck. And it's also said to stimulate more thinking process. So the head should be tilted slightly downwards, so that if your eyes were open, you would be looking at a place 5 to 6 feet in front of you on the floor. The other factor that is very important for what we call our motivation, this initial setting the mind in a particular direction, the other factor is the fact that, yes, we're grateful. Yes, we understand our connection with others, the fact that we're still alive and can engage with our life and with others. And of course, the other very important factor is that when we really check our own life and the lives of others, we see tremendous confusion, tremendous dissatisfaction, a tremendous craving for more and more experience, more and more pleasurable experience, more and more inability to cope with even the slightest pain or suffering, an intense kind of dissatisfaction, lack of contentment, and of course, often just sheer physical and mental pain, which is very obvious to anybody looking on. Most of the pain is quite hidden. It is not necessarily shown, even on the face, but we know from our own experience how much dissatisfaction there can be. And also the inability of the mind to be still and calm. So this factor is very important, recognizing how all living beings are in a state of unsatisfactoriness. That is how they perceive life, due to disturbing emotions, a lack of insight and clarity, and so forth. So, seeing that, one could begin to feel like a parent or a mother towards her child who is suffering, who is sick. So beings are sick with confusion, with envy, jealousy, anger, cravings, pride, and all the rest of it. It's a sickness. So when a doctor or a mother sees a sick child, the response is wanting to help. It's love and compassion, especially the compassion aspect, wishing to eradicate that suffering, at least the aspiration for that, to free the being from their pain. So we don't have to look very far, apart from ourselves, of course. We don't have to look very far to find tremendous dissatisfaction, tremendous lack of fulfillment, and beings being tossed this way and that by the disturbing emotions, which often creates incredible havoc, incredible destruction. And this is all happening in the world. And we may have noticed how when we are striving intensely for our own happiness, our own pleasure, our own success, then there's always some kind of, not only expectation, of course, but there's an insecurity, there's a fear, there's an anxiety as to whether we will achieve what we want. There's a holding on to a sense of a me who needs to get this and get that and avoid this and that. So, to cut it short now, wherever we look, we see confusion, ignorance. We see longing, desire, and attachment. We see aggression, all due to the fact that we are not understanding ourselves or making friends with ourselves. We are creating confusion and all the rest because we ourselves are full of all of that. The projector and the film can only project onto the screen what is there on the strip of film. So if the strip of our mind is filled with conflicting emotions, that's what happens. That's what is transmitted outwards. And that's what we see in the world. It's what we see on the screen of life. So therefore we practice. That's why we engage in practice. That's why we investigate great texts like the one we're looking at, in order to begin to understand and tame our unruly minds. And we also have the aspiration that by doing so, we will be of much greater benefit to other beings who actually desperately need help, guidance. So to do that, we need several factors. We need to have a stable, calm mind, as well as wisdom, insight, and compassion. So we start with the first, stability of mind, so that we can watch and be aware and not get caught up in the kind of turmoil, in the tsunami of thoughts, feelings, emotions, memories, plans, ideas, which keep on keeping the mind in a state of near boiling, kind of simmering that never stops. So we'll be watching the breath, engaging in watching the sensation of breath at the tip of the nostrils as we breathe in and out. For beginners, that can be a little tricky. So in that case, you might want to focus on the rising and falling of your abdomen as you breathe in and out. Just be aware of that process, the sensation of it. And when the mind is distracted by thoughts, as it will be, that's okay. Just notice that, recognize that. Be aware of it. Just gently let it go and come back to the breath. Come back to the breath. Again and again, the mind will entertain thoughts and get distracted. No problem. Just awareness of that. Back to the breath. Beginners, maybe try for 3-4 minutes, then take a break, and then start again. The mind can easily get tired and discouraged if we try for too long at the beginning. Those who can, we sit quietly for 10 minutes. The out breath is very important and useful as a way of relaxing and just letting go, dissolving. So relaxing with the out breath. Need to stretch or stand briefly, do that. Okay, a little bit. Thank you. I don't get. Thank you. So that was more than 10 minutes. I hope not excessive for anyone. I hope you took a break if you needed. So we have some new participants today. Thank you. And so maybe just a little bit of revision, just a little bit, especially for people who might be quite new to Buddhism itself. So it's interesting to know that the word which denotes Buddhism in Tibetan language is, I think, Nangpa, which means someone who is a inner person, inner being, inward oriented, meaning someone who is, let's put it this way, someone who has realized what sometimes is called the secret of the mind, which is not a very, very esoteric secret. It's kind of a basic secret, which is that the source, the origin of happiness and suffering lies primarily within the mind. Although the actions of human beings and animals suggest that we think, most of us, that happiness will come from outside. And when we suffer, we blame outer circumstances, people, and so forth, or the weather. So we act as though suffering and happiness come from outside, whereas if we investigate, we might find the opposite, that it actually depends primarily on our awareness, on our minds, on our consciousness. So if we are an inner person, we begin to understand that. We are working towards that. We are not just outward oriented. We said earlier when we were talking about the posture that we are also connected with others, and we do not wish to hide from the world. We wish to communicate and work with the world. Of course. We live with others. We live in a world. But here we're saying that due to the power of our senses, eye, ear, nose, tongue, touch, and the mental sense, we're constantly being drawn outwards to visual objects, to tastes, to sensations, to sounds, and so forth, and to ideas, ideologies, thoughts of all kinds, memories, aspirations, expectations. This is always sucking up our energy, the energy of the senses and the sixth sense, if you like, which is the mind, the mental power. So that doesn't leave us much space or energy left for proper investigation of who we are, what we are, how things are actually operating. We're just automatically drawn outwards as soon as we open our eyes in the morning. And even at night, you could say we are drawn into a dream world where we do not even know we're dreaming. We are so caught up in that. Most people don't know they're dreaming. So there isn't the awareness of the source, which is the mind. So we're working primarily with the mind, but that doesn't mean we're neglecting the body. Certainly not at our stage anyway. If we neglect our body, then our mind will deteriorate, and we'll be in big trouble. We will get sick. We won't be able to do any kind of practice. So we do take care of the mind. And in fact, the early stages of practice are to be very, very aware mindful of the body, the sensations, and then also of our feelings and other mental factors which make up ourselves and which make up our world. We have to be aware of all of these factors. Becoming more and more aware of them, we begin to understand how things operate. And especially we begin to understand, and this is so important, we begin to understand how we are perpetually creating the cause for our own dissatisfaction. We see that process very clearly, not just intellectually, but we see that process happening. We might have begun to see it during our breath awareness just now. How the mind cannot stay still and it keeps on wandering, it keeps on going after thoughts and sensations and pleasant memories, unpleasant memories, hopes, fears, etc., etc. It is running all the time. And this is why in a very powerful section, Shantideva in this great text says in the 5th chapter, guarding alertness, which is translated as, well, let's see what Alan Wallace translates that as guarding introspection. So there's that sense of looking inwards. We're just looking at different translations so you don't get confused, because sometimes we get used to just one way of translating and then we don't know what other people are talking about. The Padmakara group calls it vigilant introspection. Batchelor calls it guarding alertness. So the point is we are watching, we are being very careful what is happening in our minds. We're very careful. We don't allow the mind to just run riot and do what it wants. The great Tsongkhapa, founder of the Gelugpa or Yellow Hat School of Tibetan Buddhism, he says in his great text, the great treatise on the stages of the path to enlightenment, that up to now, the mind has been in control. We have not been in control of our mind. The mind has been in control of us, and therefore we are still in the situation we're in. Due to lack of awareness, we have not been able to rein in this mind. So Shantideva here in chapter 5, he had said very clearly in the first 3 stanzas of that chapter that those who wish to guard their practice should very attentively guard their minds. Those who don't guard their minds will be unable to guard their practice, their practice of awareness, practice of meditation, and so forth. Practice of recognizing and letting go of the disturbing emotions and so forth. In this world, he says, unsubdued and crazy elephants are incapable of causing such harms as the miseries of the deepest hell, which can be caused by the unleashed elephant of my mind. Matlab, the elephant, our mind is likened to a wild elephant that is unsubdued. That is far more dangerous than any ordinary elephant, however crazy and wild it gets. Our own minds are much more dangerous if they are not taken care of. They can, of course, they can lead us to very heavenly states. They can lead us to Buddhahood. Or if uncontrolled, and if we allow our unwholesome tendencies to take over, they can lead us to the deepest kind of suffering conceivable. That's the power of our mind. However, Shantideva says, if the elephant of my mind is firmly bound on all sides by the ropes of mindfulness, then all fears will cease to exist and all virtues will come into my hand. This is the quote we have halfway up the steps here at Tushita. As you go upstairs back into the real world, or if you come down, that's what you see. I'm just checking the translation, how Wallace translates it. But if the elephant of the mind is completely restrained by the rope of mindfulness, then all perils vanish and complete well-being is obtained. It's another way of looking at it, I guess. well-being rather than all virtues will come into my hand. Complete well-being. We have wellness, don't we? Have wellness now. We never had wellness as a label 20 years ago. Wellness this and wellness that. But wellness, I guess, in Wallace's translation, means a mind, state of mind that has been obtained through practice of virtue, because only real virtue can lead to total wellness, mental health. Yeah. Wellness nowadays, yeah, I guess it's used also for the mind, but largely physical wellness, perhaps. With this virtues. Virtue is an important, rather old-fashioned word, but very important because it indicates action that leads to a very deep level of future happiness and well-being, yeah, as opposed to non-virtue. So, and then I think in this chapter, again, a very important verse in chapter 5 said that he uses a very amazing example, actually, when you think about it. He says, where would I possibly find, this is verse 13, where would I possibly find enough leather with which to cover the surface of the earth? कहाँ हमको इतना चमड़ा मिलेगा कि पूरा दुनिया के ज़मीन को मैं ढक सकूं? Where could I possibly find so much leather? It's a foolish task to try and cover the earth with leather. Yet wearing leather just on the soles of my shoes is equivalent to covering the earth with it. You understand what he's saying? He's saying if you want to have a smooth, you know, walk or journey without your feet getting lacerated and covered with wounds and blood, don't try and, you know, don't try to cover all the earth between here and where you live with leather. You know, don't try to subdue and control the outer world all the time. Just control your own mind. Wear shoes and your task is accomplished. Likewise, it's not possible for me to restrain the external course of things. Why should I, but should I restrain this mind of mine? Were I to restrain my own mind, what would be the need to restrain anything else, all else? If I restrain my mind, then in a sense, the work is done. Of course, it's not completely done in the sense there's still work to be done to benefit others. But the point is that if I restrain my mind, then I will not be drawn into unwholesomeness, and I will not be looking for the answer to my problems outside or largely outside. I'll be looking inside. We have to be skillful about this. If I'm sick and I need a medicine, yeah, I need to look outside, of course, to a doctor, to a pharmacy. But why am I sick? This is the point. Where does sickness come from? You know, this has to be looked at. Now, of course, that would take us into a discussion of cause and effect, karma, and we can't revise the whole of Buddhism here right now. We have to get on with the text. But these are some things that have been looked at, the importance of the mind. And then this text is mainly about generating an extraordinary mind called Bodhichitta, which is the attitude wishing to become a fully awakened person in order to benefit others, in order to also lead others to that state. In Buddhism, we speak about nirvana and we speak about enlightenment. Nirvana is basically described as one's own liberation. When we practice properly, you could say ethical conduct, and then on that basis we practice stabilizing the mind, concentration, and then using that mind to develop wisdom or insight, then we can attain what is called nirvana. We can become free of confusion and ignorance and suffering for ourselves. that is mainly something we are doing for ourselves. So we can become liberated. However, from the point of view of some of the other teachings, or the so-called Mahayana teachings, or great vehicle teachings, that's not enough. It's not enough to just help oneself, just as the member of a family would not just think of helping themselves. If everybody was in danger, they wouldn't just try to free themselves from pain. They would help, other members of their family, usually. So in the same way, seeing all of us as part of a family, human family of beings, we don't just work for our own liberation. We do not consider that enough. How could it be enough when other people are also suffering? Some of them much more than I am. So how could I just work for myself? This is the kind of attitude that is generated in the so-called great vehicle teachings, So for that, we need to generate tremendous amount of love and compassion, great compassion, seeing everybody's suffering, wishing to free everybody of their suffering by seeing all as equal to me, everyone equal in the sense of wanting happiness, not wanting to suffer. Everybody is equal in that regard. We cannot make any distinctions there as we can otherwise with race and gender and sexual preference and color and country and all the rest of the things that we divide ourselves with. In terms of everybody wanting happiness and not wanting suffering, we're all the same. So then Shantideva asks, how come, if this is the case, how come my happiness and my suffering is so much more important than others? A ridiculous position to hold. And in any case, I'm just one person. We are all individually just one person. So how come we're more important than everybody else? It's ridiculous. Very ignorant, selfish attitude to entertain. So anyway, this book is mainly concerned with how to generate this state of mind that spontaneously and joyfully takes on the task of liberating all living beings from suffering. Seeing this life, or this so-called cyclic existence, as a prison, like a prison, the person embarking on this path, called a bodhisattva, the bodhisattva aims to liberate all beings. So for that, obviously, we need a very powerful state of mind, a very powerful, clear, compassionate, wise mind. We need the wisdom as well, because if we don't have wisdom, then we actually don't know how to go about it, and we get exhausted. We do not understand how things are, so we get exhausted. It's like wanting to go somewhere very much, very badly, but just not knowing how to get there, making a lot of mistakes and getting exhausted. So we need the wisdom. So the 9th chapter of this book is regarding the wisdom. We are on the 8th chapter, which is largely concerned with how to meditate in a way that will help us generate this extraordinary mind of great compassion, Bodhichitta. And of course, the benefits of Bodhichitta have already been spoken about earlier in the book. But if we were to summarize it in some way, we would say, use the statements such as, I'm just trying to remember the way my own teacher puts it. He says, real happiness in life starts when we begin to cherish others. Okay, real happiness in life starts when we begin to cherish others, take care of others. See, when we are only thinking of ourselves, and this is basic, simple psychology actually, but we often ignore it, are not aware of it. When we take care only of ourselves, worrying about ourselves, when will this happen for me? When will that happen? I'm upset, I'm this, I'm that. What? How can I be happy? All of this, me mind, where does that lead us? Where does it take us, that kind of mind? the self-preoccupied mind. Really, where does it take us? What's the result of that? I don't need to tell you. You can check, we can check for ourselves. And then how about the mind that is genuinely concerned for other people? Let's go of this self-concern, always worrying about me, and begins to take care out of love and compassion for others. What's the result of that kind of mind? Again, we can check how we are when we are totally self-preoccupied with our own problems, our own this, our own ambition, my success, blah, blah, blah. And then how do we feel when we genuinely, spontaneously are doing something for somebody else, even if it's just for a little mouse or dog or cat or whatever, out of concern for the other person, the other creature? How is that mind? So therefore, the benefits of having a mind which is genuinely concerned with the well-being of others, out of a sense of deep understanding of the world, of suffering, that kind of mind is unsurpassed in terms of its joy, as well as its, of course, benefit for others. Because that self-concern is what is it not that which sucks all the energy out of us? Self-concern, me, my problem. It doesn't mean we don't look at our own problems and work with them, but this total preoccupation just with ourselves, self-centeredness, we could say, which often then also becomes very selfish. We really don't care about other people. We use other people and so forth, or ignore them, ignore their needs. That kind of mind is exhausting. That kind of mind just brings more and more upset. Because, simply put, when we don't get what we want, when I don't get what I want, then I'm unhappy. I get angry. I get, whatever, frustrated. Do I get frustrated when I cannot do what I want for others? Yes, there can be, but it's a different kind of frustration. Check it out. It's not the same kind as when we are concerned tightly with me. Of course, if our working for others is deeply connected with our self-identity, with a strong I, me, mine attitude that I am doing this, I identify with being a good person. If there's that kind of grasping going on, then of course, not being able to help others will cause a lot of, anger and upset and what we call compassion fatigue. We will get very tired of being loving and compassionate and will again revert to ordinary self-cherishing. But if we're wise about it, then cherishing others is the best way. If we're not just using it to build up our own ego, then cherishing others is the best way. So that's why we need the wisdom to notice when we are working for others simply in a selfish way to show off or to get praise or to get a reward, then that's not going to work. That is not what Shantideva is talking about. That's not even what the Bhagavad Gita is talking about, for example, to take something from the Hindu tradition. That's speaking about, again, doing your work without thought for the reward, without desire for the fruit of your labor. You act in a positive way because that is the way to act well. You're not ambitious about the result, getting something for yourself. So that is there in not just in Buddhism, but there's a tremendous emphasis and a lot of skillful methods available in Buddhism to develop that state of mind, of bodhicitta. And this book is full of that, especially this chapter 8. Any questions so far? Yogesh Soni, who's online, has a question. Should we take care of our happiness first before making others happy, or is that incorrect thinking? That is an excellent question. You see, if we don't take care of our own happiness at all, then we, especially if we don't appreciate ourselves and think that, oh, well, I'm just a evil person who up to now has been looking after myself, so therefore I'm going to help others, feeling rather disappointed and upset with oneself, and deciding that, well, I'm not going to eat or dress properly, but I'm going to make sure other people are well dressed and have enough to eat. That, I don't know if that's going to work. I don't think that will work. We have to start caring for ourselves first. Otherwise, we'll find we get exhausted and upset. Charity begins at home, says the expression, and that is probably very, very correct. Even the airlines know about this when they give you safety instructions before takeoff. Yeah, one of them is, make sure your own, your own mask, your own belt is properly fixed before you fix the other person's. It's like saying, if you want to save someone from drowning, make sure you can swim first. Make sure you can swim as well. Otherwise, you'll just take the other person down with you. So if you want to help someone, you have to help yourself first. How can we help people if we are just blathering idiots ourselves who are very weak and cowardly and hate ourselves or think we are useless? How can we then be strong and confident and help others? It's ridiculous. But yeah, very good question, because we might think that Buddhism is saying, oh, don't take care of yourself, just take care of others. No. My brother used to remind me of this. He's also takes a lot of interest in Buddhist teachings. He once reminded me that there is a statement, and I can't remember where it is, but it is from the teaching somewhere that, the Buddha at one point said to some of his disciples that if you search far and wide, excuse me, throughout the corners of the universe, you will not find anybody more deserving of happiness than yourself. And that makes sense, because if we talk about the equality of self and others, my happiness and suffering is of equal importance as yours, actually, in terms of wanting happiness, not wanting suffering. So it is very important to take care. But the thing there is that according to people who really practice, then actually tremendous satisfaction and happiness is going to come when we at least momentarily forget our own problems and our own happiness and work for the happiness of others. Then that automatically brings a satisfaction. Whereas if we're always thinking of our own happiness, maybe we'll always find something is missing and we will not be happy because something is wrong. Maybe it's just your house needs repainting, or something happened to your car, or your child is not doing something that you want. So that will make you unhappy. But if we're just working for the happiness of others without expectation of reward, that's important though, without expectations, then that's the best way to live. But that is difficult, because without expectations also means without expecting thank you, without always wanting to be acknowledged and thanked for what you're doing. If we want thanks all the time or praise, then also we had it, then that's a recipe for disaster. People are often so self-obsessed, they're not going to thank you. You may help somebody in a very deep way and they won't thank you. And sometimes that happens and one says, how could that happen? But think about it. Aren't we also sometimes so self-preoccupied, so caught up in our own thoughts that we don't recognize what's going on and that someone may have done something for us? It happens. We're so self-preoccupied with what's happening in our head or what we want to do next, we don't notice what somebody else has done for us. Later, we might remember and then say, oh, I didn't acknowledge, didn't thank them. But the best thing is not to be so confident and happy in oneself that one stops caring whether other people thank us or not. And this is also the blessing of compassion, because if we're really compassionate, have developed some compassion, then our main concern is to help others be free of suffering. We're not concerned about whether somebody, a really good doctor, someone or nurse, they come into casualty, you know, they're half dead. You're helping them. You don't expect them to say thank you, at least not immediately, that kind of thing. You know, maybe later you get some thanks, or maybe you don't. You know? So anyway, a mother, let's take that example, doesn't expect her infant child to thank her for feeding it, for feeding the child, or for patting its back when there's, you know, when there's gas or air, or when the baby needs to burp, or when the baby gleefully makes a lot of caca and the mother cleans it up, or the father even, then the baby doesn't say thank you. Or maybe it does gurgle something, who knows? But anyway, there's no thank you. You know what I mean? So if we're like that, then that's the best way to be happy. Because you realize other people are sick, other people are suffering, they need my help, then you're just happy to help them. Just as you would be happy to feed a starving cat or dog, if you could. You would be happy. You wouldn't expect, I mean, automatically that being's getting well is enough. You could say, thanks for us. Doesn't Shantideva say this in what we were studying the other day? He said, when both myself and others are similar in that we don't wish to suffer, what's so special about me? Why do I protect myself and not others? And then, yeah, he says, verse 108 in chapter 8, verse 108, he says, won't the ocean of joy that shall exist when all beings are free be sufficient for me? Matlab, by helping others, they're so happy, they'll be so joyful. Isn't that enough for me? You know, other people's happiness, isn't that enough? Of course it's enough, you know. And of course, he uses it in that verse as a statement challenging us to not just get involved with our own liberation alone. What am I doing wishing for my liberation alone? Because there's so much joy, there's so much happiness in seeing other people joyful and happy when one helps them. Of course, at the highest stage, one isn't even looking for that. The real Bodhisattva who has realized the ultimate truth does not need even the joy of others to make themselves happy. Their joy just comes in doing what they know is the best for others. They don't need to even see a smile on the face of someone they're helping. They don't need to hang around after having given some kind of amazing medicine or help to somebody. They don't need to hang around, if you like, to see the smile on the face of that person and for them to say thank you. They don't need it. Not because they're masochists, just because their great happiness comes in helping others be free of suffering. Because the Bodhisattva knows what suffering is very deeply, knows how other beings suffer so much in all kinds of ways. And here it helps to know what Buddha meant by suffering. He doesn't just mean headaches and problems and hot, heat and cold and hunger and thirst and anxiety and fear. He doesn't just mean those things. He means what we call ordinary happiness also for Buddha is suffering, a kind of suffering, because it doesn't last and it always turns into something else. So the Buddha and the Bodhisattvas have very deep understanding of unsatisfactoriness, is a better word than suffering all the time. They realize how unsatisfactory our lives are, so they're happy to do anything to prevent any of these levels of dissatisfaction. Of course, the deepest level of suffering is the fact we have this very kind of body and mind, which is like a magnet for all kinds of problems and sorrow. So the actual real Bodhisattva is aiming to help people cut the very root of their pain, their suffering, which is this ignorance, which perpetuates our existence, this craving and grasping at a me, at a mine, I, me, mine. The real Bodhisattva with wisdom, of course, knows that's the basic problem. Okay, so anyway, very good question, Yogesh ji. Sorry, I gave a long and tangential answer also. The name of the book, Ajar, that we're looking at is The Guide to the Bodhisattva's Way of Life, which is also given 3 different titles in the 3 different translations. But basically, the Sanskrit is Bodhisattva Charya Avatar, which means actually entering into the deeds of a bodhisattva, or a guide to the Bodhisattva's way of life, a guide to the Bodhisattva way of life, a guide to the Bodhisattva's way of life, the way of the Bodhisattva. These are different titles, meaning the same thing. It's the more technical, I guess, correct translation might be the early one, entering into the deeds of a bodhisattva. Matlab, what does a bodhisattva do? How does a bodhisattva behave in their life to help others? Entering into the deeds of the bodhisattva. So it is, yeah, the bodhisattva's way of life. Any other question or comment from someone who needs some background on this? Don't be afraid to ask simple questions, because simple questions may not be so simple. Anybody? Yes.
मुक्ति, निर्वाण, योग कहता है कि समाधि।
Wow.
इसमें क्या डिफरेंस आता है? मतलब मैंने स्टोरी पढ़ी है सिद्धार्थ गौतम की, उसमें कहते थे कि सत्य है कि हम खोज पे निकले।
हाँ।
तो क्या सत्य है ये जो है समाधि डिफरेंस है?
So a question here from someone here. What is samadhi? What's its connection to liberation? You know, mukti, we have this term, especially in Hinduism, mukti, liberation. It's not a word we use much in Buddhism. We use nirvana. We use the word bodhi or samyak sambodhi for complete enlightenment. So samadhi is one of 3 things we need to attain our own liberation. 3 चीज हम लोगों को अभ्यास में लेना पड़ेगा, वो है शील, समाधि, प्रज्ञा. Shil is ethical conduct, samadhi is focused mind, concentrated mind, pragya is wisdom. We need those 3 basically to attain our own liberation, our own nirvana. So you might say the word in Hinduism is kevalya or mukti. Or kaun se shabd hai? Moksha is a common word. But in Buddhism, we use the word nirvana. But this text is speaking about something even beyond nirvana, which is complete Buddhahood, samyak sambodhi. Samyak sambodhi. Complete Buddhahood, which is a state where we do not just have personal peace. मतलब केवल अपने शांति के लिए, अपने मुक्ति के लिए हम लोग नहीं जी रहे हैं. हम लोग सम्यक संबोधि प्राप्त किए हैं, जिसमें हम हमेशा के लिए दूसरों के लिए मेहनत करेंगे और दूसरों को ज्ञान के रास्ते पर ले आएंगे और दूसरों को भी सम्यक संबोधि के लेवल पे बिठाएंगे, है ना? So complete Buddhahood is something quite different, because the Buddha doesn't just rest in nirvana. क्योंकि nirvana जो है, in nirvana we do not come back into the world to benefit others. The Bodhisattva comes back again and again, gets reborn again and again, willingly, in a controlled way. समझ रहे हैं ना? आप अंग्रेजी समझते हैं ना? कुछ हद तक, है ना? So the Bodhisattva gets reborn again and again in order to come back to help others. But they die and they live in a much more, dominated by compassion and wisdom, rather than ignorance, anger, attachment, as ordinary people are. So theirs is a very different rebirth from ordinary people's. They come back with this very powerful mind, which can be, again, benefiting others. Buddhahood is the state when that has been perfected. Then one perfectly, without mistake, works for others spontaneously. So samadhi is a very important component, basic component of spiritual path. Even the high bodhisattva needs to go into higher levels of samadhi to attain Buddhahood, it is said. So samadhi is not just one kind of samadhi. बहुत samadhi hai, बहुत level के हैं samadhi के. So the highest samadhi is one which happens just before that being becomes a Buddha. the Vajra-like samadhi. Anyway, but for us, at the basic level, samadhi means we develop a very calm, clear mind, which then becomes very light and flexible, and we can do a lot with that mind. Basically, we use that mind to meditate on wisdom, how things exist. Shunyata.
Do we develop wisdom reading text alone?
What do you think? Question is, do we develop wisdom by reading texts alone? So I'm throwing the question back at the questioner. Or
It needs a combination of experience.
what do you think?
What amount of experience one needs?
आप बताइए. To get the benefits from, I don't know, dal, chawal, sabzi, do you just need to read the recipe and know the recipe? Or do you need to actually cook those things? Yeah, so same thing. We need the experience, yeah, but deeper experience. We study, then we reflect, then we meditate. That's the combination we keep on talking about. Listening or studying, reflecting, meditating. What we're doing now is just listening, kind of listening and studying. It's the first step. Then we need to reflect more, study more, discuss, and then go deeply into meditation on the topic. Otherwise, it's just interesting sounds, you know. Useful, but not that useful. Not as useful as it can be. So we have to put more effort into making it real. Yeah, of course. Yeah. And that is one big issue, one big, problem, because in our busy lives, we can become convinced that we do not have time to investigate properly. So we read something, then we leave it, then we read something else. And that's not enough. So then we wonder why our mind is not changing enough, why we still have anger and attachment and so much ignorance or jealousy, even though we have read everything about how these things are not useful, how they can be changed. We have read it. We may know the points and can recite them by heart, but if we're not practicing it, it's just like knowing the recipe for, I don't know, gajar ka kheer, halwa, or you know, bedmi, aloo bedmi, which is a very special dish of Delhi. So if we just know the words and the recipe, but we don't practice cooking it, then we'll never get to eat it. So yeah, we need reflection and the meditation. That brings the realization. Yeah. Okay. So, and of course, this book is easily available online, although the bachelor translation, which is very readable from the Library of Tibetan Works and Archives in Dharamsala, I think, I'm not sure, it may go out of print regularly because it's a very popular translation and one of the cheapest copies to get. But there are other very good translations as well. Yeah. Okay, so now I'm going to use I had a cup of coffee this morning, which I should not have taken just a little while before the session. So I'm going to go and answer the call of nature, and all of you are going to just reflect on what we have spoken so far. I'll be back in 3 or 4 minutes. Yeah, is that okay? So just reflect on those basic points that the mind, because we don't really believe, I think, we don't act anyway as though we understand that the mind is the main point, that it is my mind which is the main cause of suffering. Because we always think, oh, I can point to this person, that person, the government, the weather, blah, blah, blah. That's the cause of my suffering, or that's the cause of my happiness. We really think that. And when someone says, no, it's actually our mind, we don't know what we're talking about, what they're talking about. So check if you understand that. That's a basic point. Do we really understand how the mind is the main, the principle? It's not the only, okay, yeah, it's not the only factor involved, but it's the main factor involved in our happiness or our suffering. Do you really believe that? Really, really? That, you know, we need to put leather on our feet and not cover the whole world with leather? Do we really understand that? So please just reflect on that while I go and experience the nirvana of emptying a bladder. Yeah, I should have encouraged people to have a break and a drink rather than meditate. So that's, anyway, people have been drinking, and were there any? Anyway, okay, so did you have a think about that? I was thinking about it as I went to the restroom, that the cause for me to drink the coffee, which made me need to go to the bathroom midway in the session, that comes from mind of wanting, desire, when I didn't really need the coffee. I'd already had tea this morning. So then the mind created that and created the disturbance, created the discomfort of a full bladder or a weak bladder or whatever. But then I thought, well, then going to the bathroom, that's something external. That's made me happy. So then what is it? The suffering is caused by the mind, but the happiness is caused by going to the bathroom. What's going on? You know? Of course, I could say I then had the intention to go to the bathroom. So it's actually the mind which is directing the body to the bathroom by being aware of the physical state. And the satisfaction after emptying the bladder, that is not something that the bladder experiences, that is something the mind experiences, right? Is that right? The mind experiences the relief, right? So anyway, think about it. It's not simple. It's not that simple. What do you think, Venerable Kundral? I'm going to put you on the spot. What do you think about that? I'm going to allow you to. What do you think about that? The source of happiness and sorrow. As per my example, did it make any sense? You had an operation recently, right? So that is hopefully will create some lessening of a problem. So how does that come from the mind? We say the main source of happiness and sorrow is the mind, not a person or an operation, some, procedure or whatever, chocolate, earthquake. These are not the main causes of happiness or sorrow. Does that?
That makes sense to me, yes.
Mm-hmm.
It's a tough one, but yes, it is from the mind.
How is it from the mind? If there's an earthquake and our house gets broken, then how is that from the mind?
Well, we have the karma to have the earthquake.
We have the karma to have the earthquake. Yeah, I mean, Buddhism would say that, at least traditional Buddhism would say that, collectively or whatever, create the cause to have or to be in that situation, to experience an earthquake. And if our teachers are to be believed, certain prayers and practices have on occasion been performed that have averted the danger of earthquakes. But here we're in a realm that is very hard for us uninstructed worldlings to understand, because we don't have the depth of understanding yet, perhaps, or experience that actually knows how the world works and the interaction, the interface between our minds and the environment, which is a very deep one, apparently, very amazing, very, very deep. We don't understand that yet, and certainly we don't experience it, but apparently it exists. The deep connection between ourselves, each other, and ourselves and the environment. Yeah.
One thing that
A question here. Yeah.
maybe a response. One thing I reflect on is the interpretation comes from the mind. So in your example of earthquake or bathroom, where those are just external circumstances, but they're just feelings within our body that we attach positive or negative to them, which is that comes from the mind.
Right. Very good. Yeah. Yeah. That we just attach certain categories, you could say, to certain feelings, sensations we have in the body, and we've decided this one is unpleasant, that is considered pleasant, this is uncomfortable. Well, of course, what's uncomfortable for one person isn't for another necessarily. And then there's the other point that is made in the text, that for high-level practitioners, you can cut their bodies or chop them up limb by limb and they don't feel pain. And they certainly don't feel any anger or fear. So what's that about? It must mean that it's, one is able to train the mind in a way where it does not feel doesn't have the ordinary reactions that most people have. So really, mind is the source. If we train our minds, we can cope with many difficulties easily, which Shantideva is alluding to in this chapter also, in these verses that we've come to. If we don't train our minds, then even the smallest thing can create tremendous upset, anger, and so forth. So, yeah, it does appear to come from the mind. So here, you see, we just looked at verse 117 last time, but here he's just giving an example of how one can have this compassionate and caring mind towards others, which was the last line of verse 117. In 118, he says, it's out of his great compassion that the Lord Avalokiteshvara has even blessed his name to dispel the nervousness of being among other people. Yeah. I'm wondering how others have translated that. Therefore, the protector Avalokita empowered his own name to remove even one's fear arising from timidity in front of an audience. Yeah. So you see, bodhisattvas do their utmost to help others in all sorts of ways. However many ways they can adopt to help others, they will adopt those ways. And of course, different people need helping in different ways. Just like sick people don't all need the same medicine. You have to be subtle about that. Yeah. Then, okay, verse 119 is good. This is very good. This is beginning to introduce the the Lojong teachings, the mind training teachings. I should not turn away from what is difficult. For by the power of familiarity, I may be made unhappy even when someone whose name once frightened me is not around. Meaning, if I can train my mind, then somebody who caused me upset before, I can miss their presence when they're not here. Whereas before I wanted them to be far away from me, now I get upset when they're not nearby. I can develop such love and compassion for people whom I once didn't like, despised, didn't care for. So then in verse 120, he mentions this practice. Thus, whoever wishes to quickly afford protection to both the self and other beings should practice that holy secret, exchanging of self for others. We spoke about earlier equality of self and others. This is exchanging self for others. Exchanging self for others is not to be taken literally. We cannot, give you my body and I'll take your body or something, or your mind and you take my mind. It's referring obviously to an attitude. Whereas before I cared mainly for myself, now I'm going to care for others. I'm going to regard the other person's suffering as my own and try and eradicate it. So exchanging my cherishing from oneself for cherishing others. I'm going to change the attitude completely that I had before. And he's calling it a holy secret. Because if we were to really understand and practice it, it would lead to a very holy life, a very wonderful, wholesome, holy life, where we would then, be well on the way to becoming an authentic bodhisattva, and then, well on the path to full awakening. Because of attachment to, so what stops this right now? What stops us exchanging self with others? What creates the problem up to now? Because of attachment to my body, even a small object of fear frightens me. So who would not revile as an enemy this body that gives rise to fear? So he's now beginning to employ reasonings that are helping to dislodge this infatuation with oneself, with one's body, and with protecting oneself alone. So given this attachment to our body, isn't it true, as he says, that even small things frighten us? I know people who, one fly comes into the house, it becomes a real, like enemy invasion. Makhi aa gaya, oh, there's a fly, it's like red alert. And mosquito, red alert, And if one has been bitten by a mosquito at night, that becomes a very, very fertile source of conversation for a long time. Like some big enemy invasion happened, I was bitten by a mosquito. It becomes a big deal. And then one starts worrying, of course. Did I get this? Did I get that disease? It is not to say we shouldn't protect ourselves from mosquitoes if we are, wise. But you see what it's saying, that small things, somebody doesn't say thank you, or somebody doesn't look at us in the right way, and we get extremely upset and start talking to others about it. Or we turn the lights off at night and then we hear some sound. That's a small thing, frightens us. Could be a mouse nibbling away in some corner of the room, and that becomes very frightening. So what's the cause of that? It's this particular kind of body and mind we have right now. So we should regard that in a sense as the enemy. Of course, enemy language is problematic in another way, but he's saying, if you want to find a problem, a cause of your problem, an enemy, then don't look outside. It's your own very self-grasping at your own body, you see. By wishing for a means to remedy the hunger, thirst, and sickness of the body, I might kill birds, fish, and deer, and loiter by the sides of roads to rob others. So we know that, in fact, nowadays, of course, people don't just kill birds, fish, and deer for their own food, which they have to have, but it's a sport, right? There can be people who fish, people who like to kill birds or even deer. There was one very important one, who was it? One Republican politician in the States who was really into that, Sarah or something, I think, maybe Alaska, I'm not sure. Anyway, one shouldn't judge too much, but he's saying here that, we do so much for our own body or just for our own entertainment. And if you look at what mankind, what human beings are doing in the oceans, decimating the fish, and with the modern methods of fishing and trawling, destroying so much life of the ocean, just so we can have the taste of fish and so forth. So, and what is this for? It's to remedy the hunger and the thirst and the sickness of the body. So if for the sake of its profit and comfort, I would even kill my mother and father and steal the property of the Buddha Dhamma Sangha, then I would undoubtedly proceed to burn in the flames of the deepest hell. I wonder if he's referring literally to one would be willing to kill one's this life mother and father, or whether he's saying, giving the Mahayana context of everybody has been our mother and father in past lives, because we've had infinite past lives. So everyone has been my mother and father, even all the fish and the deer that I kill or the people I kill, they've all been my mother, father in the past. So does he mean that, I wonder? What do you think, folks?
That they once were our mother and father. That's what I think.
You mean past lives, mothers, fathers?
Yes.
Yeah, that's the way I take it, because not many people are willing to kill their mother and father of this life for profit or comfort, I think. Of course, there are cases, of course, but even of parents killing their children. But yeah, I think Shantideva is mainly referring to the fact that everybody has once been our mother and father. So if you're killing an ant even in this life, they have previously been a mother, father to you, or a rabbit, or a deer, or a person, or a cow, or whatever, a whale. I mean, to kill whales, that seems to me pretty amazing, because they're so huge, they're so vast, and they are killed and they suffer, it seems, quite a lot before they actually die. Yeah, the whaling industry is very powerful still and very active. Did any of you see the film, the second episode, the Avatar Part 2? No, no one's seen it. Little bit. There's a whaling scene in that. Kind of whaling scene in that. It's worth seeing that movie, actually. Although it's 3 hours, so if you like long long movies. It's 3 hours, 3 hours and 10 minutes at least. If you have time to spare, you can watch that. If you can get beyond the ideological barrier of, oh, these people spent millions to make this film, but actually it's a very beautiful film. Visually, as well as the ideas behind it, is very beautiful and necessary, actually. So one should forget that it cost however many million, which could have been spent on hospitals and whatever. But anyway, whaling, yeah, and all those things. And yes, we do steal. Some people, of course, remember, Shantideva is giving this discourse to a group of monks at Nalanda Monastery, some of whom, no doubt, occasionally, take things of the triple gem, put it in their pockets, offerings and this and that, or money which has been offered. And maybe some of the monks or others are a bit naughty and sometimes steal things. Well, this causes very deep suffering. Stealing, the karmic consequence of stealing and all these things, especially from, the monastery or from something like that, is a considered very unwholesome karma with dire results. Yeah. Therefore, what adept would desire, protect, and venerate this body? Who would not scorn it and regard it as an enemy? Adept means someone who is practicing the path, who has become adept, an adept at practice. What wise person would desire, protect, and venerate such a self? Who would not see it as an enemy, and who would respect it? The Wallace translation. Yeah. If out of concern for oneself, one thinks, if I give it away, what shall I enjoy? Then this is a fiendish state of mind. If out of concern for others, one thinks, if I enjoy it, what shall I give away? This is a divine state of mind. Now, this is very nice. There's two attitudes here. If I give this, what will I have left? That's the way of ghosts to think, ghosts or ordinary people. If I enjoy this, but if I do enjoy it, then what will I have left to give to others? If I think that way, मतलब मैं enjoy कर लूं तो बाकी क्या रहेगा दूसरों को देने के लिए? That's a divine state of mind. Selfless thinking. Such selfless thinking is a quality of the gods. If for my own sake I cause harm to others, I shall be tormented in hellish realms. But if for the sake of others I cause harm to myself, I shall acquire all that is magnificent. We need to be very careful in interpreting that verse. It's not encouraging us to harm ourselves for no reason. But what it's saying is, again, take an example. A mother who may go hungry occasionally, so long as to make sure that her children have enough food. That is actually a very sublime and wonderful state of mind, actually, to think that way and to actually practice that way. And of course, certain mothers would be willing to starve to death, probably, to make sure that their children stayed alive. I'm sure there are cases of this. So that is somehow a very noble, very magnificent state of mind. But we shouldn't then think, oh, I should needlessly harm or engage in activities like that when I'm not yet capable, and which will only cause me to feel resentment and great fear and sorrow and all of that. Then it's being counterproductive. That's why they say, don't try and be a hero and offer your body to hungry lions and tigresses and stuff, because they're not ready for that yet. Like the great bodhisattvas can do that. It's not a problem for them. For us, it could become a problem. At the last minute, when the lion is chomping, eating our right hand, we might say, oh, should I really be doing this? The pain is getting quite great. One will think, oh, well, I could have been, home, watching Netflix or something. Then it's a problem. So we need to make sure that we can do what we set out to do. We shouldn't be totally unrealistic. By holding myself in high esteem, I shall find myself in unpleasant realms, ugly and stupid. But should this attitude be shifted to others, I shall acquire honors in a joyful realm. So it said that by being arrogant and thinking of oneself, the karmic result is to find oneself in a state of being a servant to others, of being a slave, or in some unpleasant realm, not being attractive and being a bit dumb, being a bit foolish, not very wise. But if I'm hold others in high esteem, work for the sake of others, then it's opposite. If I employ others for my own purposes, I myself shall experience servitude, slavery. If I use myself for the sake of others, I shall experience only lordliness. Lordliness, I don't like that word, but I've never heard it before. By ordering another around for one's own sake, one experiences the position of a servant and the like. But by ordering oneself around for the sake of others, one experiences the position of a master and the like. I like that translation. Wallace. And what does the Padmakara group say? Enslaving others, forcing them to serve me, I will come to know the state of servitude. But if I labor for the good of others, mastery and leadership will come to me. Yeah. So we're getting the idea there. But for this, we have to have, again, some study, trust, some understanding, some trust in cause and effect. Karma, which is the hardest thing for the modern mind to accept, because we feel it cannot be proven by instruments, scientific instruments. And we're not prepared to do the hard work of going into deep states of, samadhi and practice and so forth, where we would know whether it's true or not, through seeing it directly with the mind, with the trained mind. Most scientists are not prepared, most of us, let's face it, even Buddhists are not prepared, haven't yet gone deep enough to know directly the truth of karma. We may believe it, but we cannot see it very, very, very clearly yet. Okay, we've got 10 minutes left. Time flies when we're having fun. So, okay, no, there are two verses which are very, very important, wonderful verses. Whatever joy there is in this world, all comes from desiring others to be happy. Whatever suffering there is in this world, all comes from desiring myself to be happy. What need is there to say more? The childish work for their own benefit. The Buddhas work for the benefit of others. Just look at the difference between them. Yeah, it's clear, no? What need is there to say much more? The childish work for their own benefit. The Buddhas work for the benefit of others. Just look at the difference between them. Yeah. Okay, so we finished on verse 130. We will carry on tomorrow evening. Meanwhile, we have 6-7 minutes left, I believe. 9 minutes. Sagar has also seen. Ajay Sagar, not our usual Sagar Bhai, he's in Mumbai. Ajay Sagar says, yes, me too, nice movie, good. Yogesh also saw it. Incredibly disgusting wailing, very painful and sad. Yeah, because they're such vast animals and we're just beginning to understand their brains and their way of communicating and the real depth of these great mammals, these great beasts of the ocean, and we cause them immeasurable suffering by wounding them and killing them the way we do. So taking life anyway is one of the worst actions of the body we can engage in. Killing, stealing, sexual misconduct, killing is, yeah. Yeah, leads to dire results. Okay, what else, folks?
It's a Palin of the last.
Sarah Palin, yes. But I'm sure there are many Republicans and Democrats who fish and hunt, because it's a pastime, right? It's not considered killing in a sense. It's not you don't say I'm going to the river to kill fish. You say I'm going fishing. It's like, having a picnic, like some it's relaxing. You had a hard week and you go there and you stand there with a line and maybe beautiful scenery and you fish. It's not like you're going there angrily to kill someone, but it's still killing, you see. That's the thing. That's the problem from a Buddhist perspective. It's still killing. Of course, shikar or hunting was a very big deal in India too. Very big deal. Not just for the princes and the kings and all, but yeah. Many, I think, upper class people would go on their hunt. Not that they needed the food for food, but it was... I remember, our landlord at Tushita, before he, became someone quite different and very, very, very devoted to Dharma and our teacher, he had been on a shikar. He had killed a tiger, I think, a lion or a tiger, big one, in his youth, So this is something that aristocratic people would do, or people of certain level would do.
I think it's still quite, hunting is quite famous in Thailand, especially
Where?
Uttarakhand.
Uttarakhand. Okay. A friend here is saying that hunting and so forth still quite prevalent in Uttarakhand, which is the hilly mountainous part of used to be Uttar Pradesh, northern province. Well, northern province, a very old term. Yeah. Uttar Pradesh, northern territory, you could say in English. Northern state. Yeah. Okay, well, I think there's plenty for you to reflect on. We don't need to discuss it. Shantideva always gives so much food for thought. We could even just those last two verses we looked at, we could reflect on those. That is it really the case that cherishing ourselves is the cause of all of our problems, and cherishing others is the cause of all the happiness in the world? We could check that out in the context of what's happening in the world now. Many things happening in the world now. There's a butchery, awful butchery happening in the Ukraine. In the cold. I mean, I can't imagine what it's like for the people fighting and for the people the civilians who are at the receiving end of bombs and missiles and so forth. It's just awful. And of course, some people are raking in the profits from the unbelievable amount of armaments that are being utilized. Yeah. Yeah. What were you saying, Bob?
Previous practice in Nepal, Yeti Airline, Pokhara Airport, the China, the airport has been made in China. At least 54 people.
Yeah, there's disasters happening. Bob is saying there's been an air crash. Yeah. I find it amazing there aren't more air crashes, given how kind of fragile it all seems. But there are, of course, far less air crashes than there are car crashes. One is far more likely to die in a car accident than an airplane accident. That's pretty amazing how those things stay up in the air and they take off and land without even breaking anything. It's pretty amazing. It's like a minor miracle each time, I reckon. But one gets used to it. And then you think, well, it's safe until somebody, dies, until there's a crash. But yeah, there's terrible car crashes happening all the time. Sorry? Please,
जैसे 9 अवतार आते हैं हमारे, तो सर 10 अवतार, तो एक परशुराम है, तो सर जैसे और भी गॉड्स है, सबके हाथ में एक हथियार वगैरह रहते हैं, तो सर मतलब मैं ऐसे मानता हूँ कि हथियार रखने का ही मतलब ये है कि किसी को मारने का इच्छा थोड़ी बहुत तो अंदर है। मैंने बुद्धा जी को पढ़ा काफी, अंगुली माल का एक कैरेक्टर आता है, जिनको सिर्फ इन्होंने अपने शब्दों से चेंज कर दिया, कंप्लीटली चेंज। तो इतना तो हम जो गॉड मानते हैं कि घंटे हो जाओ मंदिर की या परिक्रमा गोवर्धन वगैरह सब किया मैंने, फिर भी अंदर की जो एक एम्प्टीनेस है वो जाती नहीं।
Good question. Yeah, our friend here is saying in Hindi that, the gods, whether the 9, 10 avatars of Vishnu and all, they all have something in their hands. Some of them have, implements which can be used to destroy others, kill others, whatever, and so forth. And he mentions the story of Angulimal, whom the Buddha subdued without any weapons, but just through the power of speech and love and so forth. And he says that from his own practice of Hinduism or whatever, or gods like that, ordinary gods, then there's no sense of real satisfaction. There's a kind of emptiness, hollowness inside with that kind of practice. Yeah. Of course, Manjushri ke haath mein talwar hai. Manjushri has a sword, but it's to cut ignorance. Agyanta kaatne ke liye. Kisi ko marne ke liye nahi. And even the Hindu gods, I'm sure some of them have instruments. They're not really meant to kill people. They're meant to maybe destroy some negative emotion, possibly. Or even in the myths, if the god does kill someone, the person is symbolic of ego or some problem or problematic aspect of consciousness. The god is killing that. Yeah. Anyway, one should practice what is best for oneself. But yeah, in Buddhism, we do not even believe in the supremacy of the gods. We do not believe in creator God. We speak of mind and karma. They are the great creators of this world, not God. And yeah, many of the gods, they seem to have some problems. Yeah.
महाभारत रहा, श्री कृष्ण रहे, वगैरह वगैरह, हजारों साल से युद्ध हो रहे हैं, तो तब भी तो ऐसा हो सकता था कि कोई बोले हम शांत हो जाओ, मत लड़ो, जैसे बुद्धा जी ने उनको कहा, अंगुलीमाल को, तो वो सब हजारों लोग बच जाते। तो हम ये गुलाम हैं जो पालन कर रहे हैं।
महाभारत तो कुछ और चीज है ना, अंगुलीमाल तो एक ही व्यक्ति थे, अब पूरा सेना के सामने आकर के उनको शांत कराना, वो तो एक दूसरी बात है ना। So I think, but yeah, Buddha had the power of great love and compassion, and so he was able to subdue Angulimal. But it doesn't mean he could have stopped the whole war. Or, although it is said that he did stop some conflict in his own, his father's kingdom. He did stop some conflict, the Buddha. But yeah, it depends on many factors, perhaps. Yeah. Thank you. Bye. So yeah, like that. Acha, 1 baj gaya. It's gone 1 o'clock. Sorry, I have to take care of my own happiness also. Hi, Tia. Good to see you. Very good to see you. Are you still in Bodha or in Delhi?
I'm in Delhi, Kabir. She just got back from Himachal last week.
Come and see us next week. And
I'm a bit tied up, but I'll text you and I'll.
Okay,
yeah.
very good.
I have some books to give you, so. Yeah.
Oh, we have books to give you. Anyway, whatever. Yeah, please enjoy Delhi. It's a beautiful day today, or was. I think the sun's still shining. So yeah, that's good. That's very good. Great. Okay, everybody. Ajay ji, Ajar ji, Jan, Venerable Kundral, Ritika, Nilashi ji, Alexandra, Tia ji, thank you all very, very much. Have a good day. Please dedicate for the happiness and welfare of sentient beings, for them to recognize the secret of the mind, as Shantideva says, and to may we engage more and more in benefiting others and not be so totally self-centered and so forth. Those who are already benefiting others a great deal, we should rejoice and pray that they quickly attain Bodhisattvahood and Buddhahood as well. Meanwhile, also may our kind spiritual masters have long and healthy lives. May all their holy wishes be fulfilled, especially His Holiness Dalai Lama and Kyabje Lama Zopa Rinpoche, all the other great teachers have long and healthy lives. And may we never be separated from authentic teachings and teachers. Thank you all very, very much. What word, Bob?
Sutta. Angulimala Sutta. S-U-T-T-A.
Sutta is a sutra. Thank you, everyone. Yeah, from Montana to Australia to Delhi to Sagar ji, आप कहाँ पर हैं?
सर मैं दिल्ली में हूँ.
Delhi, all the Delhi walas and so forth. Yeah, take care. Thank you. Thank you.